Welcome back to Hardware Unboxed. It is the monthly Q&A, and yeah, things don't seem quite right because my trusty sidekick Tim is not here. This was meant to be the first Q&A we did in my studio for the first time in a long time, but unfortunately Tim has got sick. So yeah, that sucks. He's been sick a bit lately, so poor little guy. But anyway, hopefully he gets better soon. I didn't want to risk catching up with him this week, even if he did start to feel better and he was possibly feeling good enough to do the Q&A, because, well, we've got a lot of really important content coming up on the channel over the next week or so, and I can't afford to be sick at all. So yeah, we're going to give Tim the flick this week. I'm going to handle all your questions by myself. So yeah, a bit of a lonely Q&A this month. But anyway, hopefully Tim will be back next month and we can do our usual Q&A where we tackle all the questions together. Anyway, I'm going to jump into the first question here. And this one was the most heavily upvoted question on the YouTube page, the YouTube community tab. Besides, and actually I'm going to sometimes put my phone this way because I've taken screenshots of the questions and they're absolutely tiny on Google Docs when I have my phone around this way. So yeah, that's why I do that. For some people to get confused why I'm holding my phone and reading questions when it's oriented this way, if I have to explain that. Anyway, besides the tech stuff, what other hobbies do you guys have? Okay, good question. Not sure we've addressed this one before. Tim basically, well, Tim's a pretty simple guy. He's 11 years younger than me. That's not what makes him simple. He likes to stick to his Lego, as you guys have probably noticed from his backdrop in his studio. So he's a big Lego fan. He likes, what else does Tim like? He likes Lego. He likes playing with tech stuff and making YouTube videos. He likes watching TVs and movies on his new OLED TV. He's a big fan of that. Oh, and of course he's a big PC gamer. He also is a pretty big console gamer as well. So I think Tim's just a video gamer in general. So that's Tim. And then me, what am I? Well, when I'm not slaving away on the YouTube channel, producing videos every minute, I really enjoy going fishing. So I'm a big fan of kayak fishing. So I do that as much as I can. Pretty much a thing for the warmer months of the year. But yeah, I really enjoy doing that. And I try to take at least one big sort of fishing trip per year. So we did that earlier this year, went up north, spent a week fishing on the kayaks. That was a whole lot of fun. And I also really enjoy, I suppose you'd call it handyman type things, building, working out how to use different tools and things to create. So I spend quite a bit of time outdoors doing that when I do get some free time and the weather's half decent. So yeah, I mean, I enjoy doing a whole heap of different things, but yeah, mainly fishing and building stuff. So I do quite a bit of that, and I make some behind the scenes videos that I share with the patrons to sort of give a bit of an insight to what I do in any spare time that I have. All right, next one is from Jeremiah. Throws me a bit of a curveball with this one, but a lot of you did upvote it, so I will address it. Do you think AMD and Nvidia are price fixing the GPU market? Quite an interesting one, that. Well, we were sort of talking about this. I had a good chat with Chris from The Good Old Gamer. If you don't know who The Good Old Gamer is, have a search in the YouTube search, and yeah, subscribe to his channel. He puts out a lot of really interesting, thought-provoking content, and he talks about this kind of stuff on his channel a lot. We mostly agreed with what's going on. Chris was a bit more critical. He was a bit more insistent that, I suppose, price gouging was taking place. And again, yeah, I didn't really disagree with that, but I wanted more information. I'm not convinced that things like manufacturing costs haven't also increased quite significantly as well over the years, and it makes producing these big complex GPUs quite costly. So yeah, I mean, you can take AMD's Vega, for example. I mean, there was the whole HBM memory thing there, but AMD didn't really make a profit as far as I'm aware with Vega. If they did make a profit, it was extremely small, and there wasn't much in it for their board partners, which is why you didn't see custom Vega cards. If you don't see custom cards, there's obviously, there's no margins there to make them. So AMD's trying to turn a profit with the RDNA stuff. I think they're going to successfully do that, and to do that, they sort of have to price match Nvidia where they're at. I think once AMD becomes a bit more competitive, they've got a few more SKUs covering a broader range of price and performance, then we'll see the GPU wars fire up again, I hope. I think that'll happen. But yeah, I'd like to know more about things like manufacturing costs. We know they're spending a lot on research and development these days to try and get those gains. It's a lot harder to get those big gains that we used to see these days, and we're sort of seeing that everywhere in tech. So yeah, it's not the Moore's Law is somewhat dead, I think, in 2019. But anyway, to answer this question really quickly, no, I don't think AMD and Nvidia are teaming up to do any kind of price fixing. Okay, a bit of an easy one here from Stanislaw, I think it is. Will I get better gaming performance from changing my R5 1600X to upcoming R5 3600X, or from changing RX 588GB to Vega 56? Prices of both upgrades should be similar. Another heavily upvoted comment. I should have turned my phone sideways for that. Yeah, okay, that is a pretty easy one to answer. I would say you'd be much better off with Vega 56. Though I'd strongly advise you wait at this point to see what the Radeon RX 5700 series has to offer, and then reevaluate your options then. That'd make the most sense. We also have some new Nvidia GPUs coming up. Not sure what that's going to do to sort of that. What I don't even know what Vega 56 is at. You said that it's the same as the CPU upgrade in your region. It's around, what are they, $350 to $400 US. Haven't really looked recently. But yeah, we'll have some new GPUs filling in that price point soon. Okay, one here from Daniel. Do you guys remember AMD said AM4 would be officially supported until 2020 when they announced it back in 2017? What do you think will be the future of the platform going forward? Well, yeah, I do remember AMD saying that, and as far as I'm aware, that's true to this day, with, well, I suppose the exception of the A300 and A320 motherboards, which are said to not support Zen 2 for various reasons. But as far as I know, speaking with companies at Computex, again, I'm yet to test this and verify it, but the companies I spoke with said that all of their B350 and X370 motherboards will support the Zen processors, or the Zen 2 processors. If I had to guess, which I hate doing, but I'll do it anyway, so this is just me guesswork speculating, I would say that the Zen 3 processors, so that's the 7nm plus Ryzen CPUs, probably going to be called the Ryzen 4000 series. Probably not a huge leap, that one. I'd say they'll work on existing AM4 motherboards as well, at least in some capacity. But again, just guessing on that one. So yeah, AMD have said that they will support the AM4 platform to at least 2020. Beyond that though, yeah, again, I'd have to guess. I'd say probably not. At that point, we'll probably see some sort of socket change that may be incompatible with AM4. But again, I'm just speculating on that one. So, okay, next question here. I won't butcher your name, so I'll spare you that. Will AMD be releasing Navi GPUs at $200 to $300 range to compete with the 1660 Ti/1600, or will they leave it at RX 590? By the way, did you know 570 XT Limited Edition was going to be called RX 690? You can check the slides AMD showed at E3. If you zoom in on the fan, it says RX 690. Love from India. Well, thank you. Okay, so the first part of that question, I would expect at some point we will see more affordable RDNA parts, but another one of those speculations, guesses. I have absolutely no idea when that will be. So with AMD, it could be at any point in time. So yeah, I'd hate to guess on that one, but I think it makes sense that they will make the RDNA architecture more affordable and more accessible at some point in time. And then as for the 570 series, or the 570 XT being the RX 690, yeah, I would have guessed RX 680 or 690 personally. Probably a pretty safe placeholder there, and then they've decided to change it to something that sounds a bit more fancy to go with the new RDNA architecture. Okay, an interesting question here from Deep. Are you gonna keep using the FPS charts as benchmarks forever? Recently, Steve GN has introduced frame time chart method. What is your opinion about it? Are you expecting to bring similar methodology to your benchmark marathon? And quite a few upvotes on that one as well. Yeah, we might. I haven't ruled it out. Doesn't work particularly well when comparing a lot of CPUs and GPUs, which we tend to do. I know Gamers Nexus do as well. I suppose you can select just a few to do head-to-heads with. So yeah, for head-to-head stuff, it is possible. Generally, it's been my experience that the frame time or any frame time issues that you see are reflected in the 1% low data, which is a frame time metric then converted over to FPS, so it's a bit easier to digest. Basically, I try to make our data or our graphs as clear and easy to understand as possible. A lot of you guys seem to appreciate that and really like our reviews and content because we do that. Occasionally, I'll remove some unnecessary things. Like, for example, from the Zen 2 content, I'll be removing most of the 8th gen core processors because, well, the 8600K has just been replaced by the 9600K. It's, 100 megahertz refresh, so there's no point including both of those. It clutters up the graphs, and I'll just say to you guys in that content, if you've got an 8600K or you want to know how that performs, it's within 1% or 2% of the 9600K. I'll have the 8700K because that's obviously a non-refreshed part. But yeah, my point is I try to make the graphs and the data as clean as possible. I try to remove any unnecessary clutter. And I know the line graphs tend to be a bit hard to follow. If I have to illustrate that, yeah, there is a frame time issue, there's some spikes here and there, then yeah, we'll use them. I know Tim's done that in the past. So yeah, we certainly haven't ruled out using them, but yeah, at the moment, we're not going to use them regularly. Next one here is from Rick. What's your plan for Zen 2 coverage? And how many sleepless nights are you expecting to get from those rapid fire benchmarks? Thanks for the benchmarks. It really helps a lot. Well, thank you for enjoying all the benchmarks. Yeah, well, firstly, I've already started testing all the necessary processes for comparison. So I usually try to do that at least a week ahead of time. So I've been spending about a week at this point testing the necessary 8th gen processors like I just spoke of, the 8700K, then the 9th gen stuff like the 9600K, the 9700K, the 9900K, and then some 1st and 2nd gen Ryzen processors. Then I'll probably look at some Skylake X and Threadripper parts. So already I've had quite a lot of really late nights updating that data. Of course, I'm also updating my GPU data as well in about a dozen games for comparing with new Nvidia and AMD GPU. So there's a lot happening at the moment, and I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little bit terrified of what's going to happen over the next week, because yeah, I'm a little scared about how AMD is going to execute this release. And yeah, I think Nvidia might be throwing some stuff in the works there as well. So yeah, I love my benchmarking, but I think it's going to get a bit out of control over the next few weeks, but we'll see what happens. The 3700X have more overclocking headroom compared to 3800X. Okay, well, right away, obviously I have to guess because I don't know at this point in time. And if I did know, then I couldn't really tell you. So still don't have any CPUs to test at this point in time. So pure guesswork. And yeah, as I just said. So, well, I suppose we can kind of work it out based on what we've seen historically. The 2700X, that generally overclocked better than the 2700 if you look at sites like a Hardware Bot. I think on average the 2700X hits around, I think it was about 4,150 megahertz. I might put some links or some stuff on screen so you can get the exact stats. And that was from about 3,000 users. Then the 2700, that hit about 3.95, about there. So it was about 100 megahertz lower, and that was from about 560 users. Again, I'm not really sure how reliable that data is. It's based on, there's a lot of variables such as motherboard quality. People with 2700s may not have bought as high-end motherboard as those with 2700Xs. Then it's based on user skill and all that kind of stuff and the cooling and whatnot. So it's really hard to say. My 2700 matches my 2700X, but it's not quite as good at memory overclocking. So that would suggest that the 2700Xs are binned as they claim to be. That's a 65 watt and 105 watt comparison. So better one might be the 1700X and the 1800X. And as far as I know, they're basically identical on Hardware Bot. The non-X1700 is about 100 megahertz lower. So again, those 65 watt parts don't overclock quite as well, which is probably why they're binned as 65 watt parts. Top Vines asks, are you going to test cheaper X570 motherboards as well and ITX boards? Yeah, well, I'm going to try and get my hands on all of the X570 motherboards. Probably a bit ambitious. As many as I possibly can, as quickly as I can. But yeah, if that means taking some of our Patreon money and buying the cheapest boards from ASRock, MSI, Gigabyte, ASUS, for example, then yeah, I'll do exactly that, because I'd like to know yeah, how the VRMs on those boards perform, what sort of temperatures they run at, what features you get, and just overall who offers the best budget X570 board. So that's definitely something I'll do. The ITX boards I'd like to look at as well. They're probably lower on my priority list, but yeah, I'll get to those. I'd also like to have a look at the ASRock M80X board as well. So hopefully I'll be able to do that before too long. But there'll definitely be some ITX Ryzen 3000 series builds on the channel in the not too distant future. I reckon Tim's going to be pretty keen to get into those. So yeah, we'll make them happen. Next question here is from Awesome Tech. I'll just turn my phone the right way. Do you think second gen prices will go down further with third gen being in market or in the market? Again, another one of these tough questions that my crystal ball isn't functioning right now, but second gen Ryzen's already pretty cheap. They've gone on sale a few times at ridiculously low prices. They'll probably drop a little bit, though I don't know if it'll be straight away. Like I said, they're already quite cheap at the moment. They're definitely going to head south at some point. Yeah, whether it's 6 months after the Zen 2 launch, I have no idea. But I probably wouldn't be holding out for any massive discounts straight away. But like I said, who knows? I'm just guessing. Well, time will tell. We'll know in a few weeks. I don't know if this is Juan. Sorry again if I've completely messed up your name. What is the minimum power supply for gaming PC? For a gaming PC, should you get a bigger one, and how much is too big? Yeah, okay. I'd say for a mid-range PC, probably around the 600 to 650 watt range is probably pretty optimal, assuming it's like a sort of at least a bronze rated power supply. Yeah, that'd be fine really. I mean, a mid-range system doesn't draw that much power, so 600 watts is plenty of headroom and does allow for a few upgrades. And really too big, I'd say for most people, once you sort of start getting up over 800 watts, 800, 850, beyond that, it's getting a bit extreme and unnecessary. But it's not necessarily a bad thing either. I mean, you do lose a bit of efficiency when you go stupidly too high. So, and you're just wasting a ton of money because you don't need a power supply that big. So anyway, I think it's best just to look at your hardware configuration and what you think you may be expanding to or upgrading with. Power supply one's always a tough question. But in my experience, pretty much all the builds we do work perfectly fine with like a 600 watt power supply. If you can get a gold rated 600 watt power supply, you should be pretty golden. No pun intended. Okay, and the next question here is from my man, Zach. How long do you guys spend editing an average video? The content is always top notch. Thank you very much. And with only the two of you, it must be a decent time span. Yeah, well, as we've said a few times in the past, Tim and I work completely independent of one another, so I don't help with editing Tim's videos and whatnot because we live about 2 to 3 hours apart, depending on traffic. And uploading the content to share to edit and stuff's just not really an option on Australian internet. So yeah, I edit all my videos, Tim edits all his, and to answer the question, it could be anywhere from a couple of hours to a day or more. It really depends on the content. So for example, this video, this would probably be one of the quickest videos we have to edit. I'd do this in like an hour or so, and it'd probably take just as long to encode it and then upload it. So this is a pretty quick and easy bit to do, which is, well, we enjoy doing them each month, partly because of that, but also because you guys like having some of your questions answered. But big benchmark videos, yeah, they're at least a day because it's just putting all the graphs in, getting all that sorted, footage, and yeah, there's a whole heap of stuff involved there. Tim's News Corner, that's another pretty easy one. He says he bangs that together pretty quickly. So you can probably tell which ones take a lot of editing work and which ones don't. And generally the ones with a lot of editing work have a lot of other work associated with them. So filming B-roll, that's always massively time consuming. And then maybe creating graphs, exporting Excel graphs, making sure they're all the right dimensions and things haven't moved all over the place. That's always very time consuming, tedious, and annoying. Anyway, depends on the video. TickGT says, hello. Welcome. How do you benchmark so many games? Do you have an HDD/SSD that games are on, and then you swap the hard drive or SSD between different computers? No, we don't do that because that method would work quite well for Steam games, as you can just set your Steam library and then there's just like an initial install each time. It takes only a matter of seconds and you're away. But games like the Epic Game Store is a real pain in the backside. The Windows Store is an absolute and utter nightmare, so we try to avoid that at all costs. Origin and Uplay aren't too bad. Origin just sucks because of the hardware limit. But yeah, Uplay and that, you just copy the games into the right folder and then you're away. But you'd still have to copy them to the folder from the secondary drive. So it's not really a great solution. Generally what we do is we have multiple 2TB SSDs. Tim's got a couple, I've got a lot. So we've spent a hell of a lot of money on SSDs, but it's a really good solution because I have one 2TB SSD that has all the games on it. So I can then copy them to the appropriate folders when we do a fresh install, and that's quite quick because you can do it at like 300-400 meg per second. And then I have another, 2TB SSD, a couple of them for AMD installs, a couple for Intel installs because we're always updating and doing fresh installs and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, 2TB SSDs really are the key. It'd be nice to upgrade to some 4TB SSDs, but yeah, not quite in the budget just yet. Okay, next question here is from Toma. The X570 will be really expensive according to some leaks or leaked sources. Plus, Intel will decrease their price. So my question is, will AMD builds stay value for money for high-end processors? Depends on, I suppose, what you mean by value for money. So, you can argue that the Threadripper 2990WX isn't good value because it's an expensive processor, but then you get 32 cores for the same price that Intel's giving you 18. There's some cons and pros back and forth there, but it's still a very expensive CPU. They're not giving you 32 cores for $500. So yeah, I mean, they're charging, I think it was $700 for the 16 core part, $500 for the 12 core part. And that's pretty pricey, but I don't think it's outrageous. And I think it's still better than what Intel's offering. Of course, we've still got to benchmark it and see where the performance really lies, but I think based on what we're expecting, some IPC gains, some clock speed gains, some better memory performance. Yeah, I think they're still going to represent really strong value for the performance that you're getting. So I don't think too much is going to change there. People are getting a bit caught up with the X570 motherboards being very pricey, but AMD's already said you don't have to get an X570 motherboard. Performance is exactly the same with a B450 or X470 motherboard. So AMD's claimed to that. Again, we'll test it, but it'd be weird for them to say that and then it be different. So it seems like you can get something like there's a couple of really high quality B450 motherboards that aren't terribly expensive, or just over $100 US. So you can grab one of those and then you can stick an 8-core processor on it for not much, and you should have a really, really high-end system capable of some good productivity stuff, gaming, whatever. So I think it's still going to be pretty good. People are getting a bit caught up with these rumors or confirmed pricing for expensive X570 motherboards that aren't necessarily necessary. Okay, I think we have a monitor question here, but we haven't got Tim, so I'll do my best. Can a 4K 60Hz monitor do 120Hz in 1440p or 1080p? It seems like a few of you are interested by this question. Short answer is no. So if that was the case, say it was 144 Hz, because we have a couple of 4K 144 Hz panels that I'm aware of. If it could do that at 1440p and 1080p but not 4K, it'd still be a 4K 144 Hz panel, but for some reason it would be disabled at 4K, which we've never seen and wouldn't happen. So yeah, the refresh rate doesn't really work that way, or generally doesn't anyway. So anyway, the answer is no. If Tim was here, you probably would have got a technical and better answer to that question, but he's not. He's sick, so, that's on Tim. Jacob says, what is your most hated Q&A question that people constantly ask you? How tall are you? I get that a lot. I don't know why people have this obsession over how tall I am or how tall Tim is. No, I don't really care. I don't hate that question at all. It's just funny that so many people are curious about that. I suppose because we sit and you don't see the lower half of our body most of the time. So I don't know. Anyway, yeah, there's nothing I really hate. I really like all the questions you guys ask. It's always interesting to us. Sometimes it helps with content that we create because it's based on things you guys are interested in. And it's just always really awesome to hear from the audience. So there's nothing I hate. Probably the difficult ones to answer are the ones that we can't really answer, like the ones that I've sort of tackled here where I've had to speculate or guess. I suppose maybe you guys are interested in hearing our guesses. Again, we don't put a huge amount of thought and effort into the guesses, so it's not really doing your questions justice, but at the end of the day, no matter how much research we do, it's a bit more of an educated guess, but it's still a guess all the same. So we rather just wait and give you guys the actual information than risk misleading you. So that's that really. I'll move on to the next one from Brian. Let's see, where are you, Brian? Here we are. How much difference would the IPC improvement of Zen 2 compared to Zen or Zen Plus make on GPUs like Vega 56/64, GTX 1070, 1070 Ti, 1080, RTX 2060 and 2070? So pretty much all mid-range GPUs. Would it also give a noticeable boost in FPS, or will it only have an impact on high-end GPUs such as the RTX 2080 Ti? I suppose the best answer for that question would really be what I often say, depends on the game. So for the most part, you would be with those GPUs, you'd be GPU limited, even with sort of a more affordable CPU. So, you know, when you're playing at 1440p with high to ultra quality settings, you're very much GPU limited. So for games such as World War Z, Rage 2, probably Far Cry, and a list this long of other mostly GPU-bound games, it won't make a difference. That's not to say it won't make a difference everywhere. So games that are very single-threaded, single-core, maybe StarCraft, maybe, I don't know, any games like that. So I think all those roller coaster sort of games, the city-building games, they'll see a noticeable uptick in performance thanks to increased IPC. Also clock speed, memory performance, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, it's really game dependent more than the GPU. Obviously, with an RTX 2080 Ti at 1080p, you'll see a performance increase everywhere. Less so at 1440p, and then maybe almost not at all at 4K because you're extremely GPU limited there. So yeah, anyway, I'm interested to do the benchmarks and find out what's what when we do, but that's what I'd guess. Okay, interesting question here. Personal question. These are always good. Hopefully he's not asking how tall I am. Why does Steve look and feel like an Aussie, okay, while Tim is really a well-behaved and disciplined bloke who doesn't even feel Aussie? I'm going to need a moment to process that one. So I'm not even sure whether I should be offended by this question or I'm just a little confused. So, yeah, I come across as very much an Aussie bloke. I don't know why, and I don't know why Tim doesn't. Tim's very much a straight shooter, very technical, doesn't mess around or beat around the bush, just gets straight into the information. So maybe that's, and I sort of joke around a bit more, maybe a bit more lighthearted. I think that's possibly also an age thing. Like I said, I'm about 11 years older than Tim. So yeah, I think when I was younger like Tim, I probably would have been a bit similar to Tim. But yeah, I'm not sure what to take away from that one. But I do like to joke around and mess around a bit and be a bit lighthearted, and you know, because it is very technical stuff and sometimes it can be quite serious. So I try to have fun with it, and you guys seem to enjoy that. And Tim does do a bit of that as well. But yeah, I don't really have an answer for that question. So maybe Tim has more insight. I don't know. Wish he was here because he'd really enjoy that one, I think. Yeah, so we'll move on. I think it's Fairfox is the next one. It's in about size 1.5 font. Here we go. How many hours do you guys play video games on a monthly basis? We've answered this one before, though I don't think I've answered it probably as well as I could have. I had a bit more of a think about it because it really depends on when you ask me. I think last time I was asked this question was in summer, and I was doing a lot of fishing, building things outside, and I really wasn't playing many video games. Occasionally I'd catch up with some old friends and we'd play some games, but yeah, quite rare over summer. However, now we're in winter and I find myself playing daily quite a bit. Probably not much over the next few weeks. Again, it depends what we have workload wise, but certainly I play more over winter. I would say on average at least 1 hour a day. I think Tim plays more than that all year round. I don't actually remember his answer, but I'd say it's a couple of hours for Tim. But again, it depends on his workload. But he probably averages an hour or two every day, maybe more. Maybe he can drop a comment below to clear that one up. But anyway, sad Tim's not here. Missed him on this one. Tomorrow I will have a part 2 Q&A, and that will be answering our Patreon questions. There's a heck of a lot of those, so hopefully I can get through all of them by myself. Hopefully there's not too many monitor related questions that I'll need Tim for. Maybe I can get him to write a script for me or something if there is. But anyway, that's part 1 of this month's Q&A. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Hopefully I answered your question or a question that you wanted to see answered. And hopefully the next 2 weeks aren't too brutal on the benchmarking, but I'm keen to get into it, and I'm really excited to see what we have in store with Zen 2, Navi, and whatever it is Nvidia have planned as well. No real details on that yet either at this point, so yeah. Anyway, thank you for watching. I'm your host, Steve. Like, subscribe, support us on Discord, support us on Patreon if you want access to our Discord, and monthly live streams, which we were meant to do today, but Tim's sick, so sorry Patreon members, we will make it up to you with a bonus one in the next few weeks. Alright, thank you for watching. I'm your host, Steve, and I'll see you again next time.